All right. I'm going a little bit crazy right now. Just to be honest, we're just starting the video this way. I'm going a little bit crazy just because I have tried to record this video 12 or 13 times, and either I get a notification saying I'm out of storage. Sorry, take a lot of videos, take a lot of photos, or some sort of interruption happens, or this freaking microphone. Don't buy this microphone. It sucks. There's a lot of buzzing that happens, and I don't like it. It was really cheap, and that's why, I'm assuming. Anyway, um, all that to say, I'm going to come across as maybe a little bit loopy. It's also very echoey in here, and as someone who is neurodiverge, it's very challenging and distracting. I'm not complaining. I'm just sharing my experience. Um, but we're gonna shake it off and we're gonna get this video done. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it. We're not gonna be stopped. Let me have a sip of my water. I know this should be wine, but this is the only glass I had, and it is water, unfortunately. Well, anyway, how are you guys doing? What's new? What's good? What was that noise? Last week's video, I was in Mexico. However, current day green sweater, Jenna, that was actually 3 weeks ago. If you follow me on Instagram, then you're getting the real time updates. So make sure you do that shameless pluggy plug. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, or yeah, just Instagram mainly, where I share stories of where I'm at in current real time. Anyway, so we were in Mexico, and then from Mexico, we went to San Francisco because we had a visa appointment, and that's the only place in California where we could go for it. Spent a few days there, took Miles because obviously it was his first, well, maybe not obviously, but it was his first time in San Francisco. I've been there a lot. Like I've had a lot of work stuff up there, a lot of workshops that I've taught there over the years, book signings. I've been there um, filming classes for Brit and Co. If you've ever heard, I have 3 watercolor classes on Brit and Co. It's a website. Anyway, and so I've been to San Francisco quite a bit. John's been a couple of times, and so we've done all of the like touristy things. I know things change and there's new stuff, but we had such good food. Oh my gosh, such good food on that leg of the trip. Um, and we went to a lot of the sites, like the bridge, obviously, Chrissy Field. We went to the Palace of Fine Arts. We went to the Ferry Building, got some great food there. We went to the Exploratorium, which is a fantastic museum. Fantastic. I love San Francisco. Also, it's just so cute and charming. Um, but at the Exploratorium, we could have spent like 3 or 4 days there, but we only had a few hours. It's huge. It's like a sciencey museum. Miles loved it. He's 6. There were some things that were definitely not age appropriate, like, more suited for like an 8+ year old. But he had a great time. And so, anyways, after San Francisco, we went to New York because we wanted to break up the travel and not make it so long of a plane ride to where we are currently. So we went to New York City. I also really love New York City, but this trip, it was kind of like, and this is no hate, no shade. Please don't get offended. We all have our different opinions and our different subjective likes and dislikes. However, the energy, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what it is, but the energy in New York this trip, maybe it was the weekend we visited or the specific places we went to, but the energy is just, it was so like intense. in every, cities are intense in general, but San Francisco, there was moments of intensity and, aggressive, whatever, city energy, but it just felt a lot more peaceful. And we lived in Chicago for 7 years. This was a long time ago. It was back in 2007 to 13 or whatever it was. But I don't know. It just felt like I please don't hate me. I'm just being honest. I couldn't wait to leave New York. I couldn't wait to leave New York. It was really intense. Energy wise, we had great food in between here and there, but there was kind of a lot of hit and misses too. I'm usually really good at the places that I find and all of that kind of stuff, but I just like, I don't know, maybe we hit like a New York in a bad mood or something, caught her in a bad mood. So then from New York, 3 days ago, we got to the new spot where we're checking out a place to live. If we like it here, we have two or three other places that we're going to go scout at some point after this. But we are in this current place for 2 months. 2 months till the end of June. And then we go back to America for a few weeks. And then we come back out in this general area. And I know I'm being vague. I know it's easy to figure out where we're going, especially if you follow me on Instagram or where we've been the last few days. If you follow me on Instagram, it's been easy to piece together and I anticipated that. And I've gotten not tons, but just, like a handful of people criticizing or judging why I haven't shared where we're going, or where we're moving to. Number one, we don't exactly know. And number two, which is kind of like tandem to that, because I'm a very, very like protecting my peace and designing my life in a way that protects it as much as possible, I have to work really, really hard at it. I've had to work really, really hard at boundaries, at being disciplined in my practices like meditation, going for walks, making sure that if I need time or if John needs time, that we're tag teaming, and being very actively present in and in tune with what my needs are and who I am as a person and what I know I need in order to move forward in a way that is in alignment and also helps me protect my energy. And so the criticism or the judgment or whatever, I'm not surprised by it. And I'm not even offended by it, of me not sharing where we're going. Not surprised or offended. It's literally, you do you, boo. We probably wouldn't be friends in real life, so I'm not offended. But the reason why I've had to protect it is just because a big reason is protecting my peace. I don't want any extra negativity or criticism going into our decision-making process on our specific location. And so I basically had to choose between, because I'm going to get criticism no matter what I do. It's just the nature of being online. Unfortunately, I am not complaining about it. It's just my experience and every person's experience who shares online. But because there's so much lacking in context for people who, and not just me and my platform, but anybody's platform on social media, whether they're a business owner like I am or an influencer or whatever, there's so much context that is missing that people then fill in the blanks for with their own projections, their own ideas of what they think you should or shouldn't, and their own beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the nature of being human. And so while there's been the majority, so receptive and so respectful of that boundary of protecting my peace and not sharing, and so many people saying like, thank you for modeling this as a boundary, like I'm going through something similar and you're showing me how to do whatever. That's amazing. Going into the decision of not sharing, I thought about it for a long time, like months. I processed it individually, and then also with John. I processed it with friends and with family of why should or shouldn't I share this? And I explained it in my first video where we announced the big news of us moving abroad. But to kind of expand upon that and to give more context, not that I feel the need to, but just because I really believe in at least trying to make an effort to shift the kind of consumer mentality we have with people online and their platforms into humanizing them a bit more. I know I can't make a dent because the population on this planet is massive and there's a lot of reversal that needs to happen. And there's so much to this topic of what makes an individual respond to things they see online and how they do that or how they respond and what goes into that. But I do believe in using my platform in a way, not totally, because this is an art platform at the end of the day, and we will get to talking about art. But things are a bit in cardboard boxes currently. So we're talking about this. But I do believe in using my platform and at least sharing my experience because I know that other people are going through something similar, whether it's online or offline, with family members and boundaries, and friends with boundaries, or with people that follow you and boundaries. Of just how I guess we view, and I'm not blaming anybody for this, but how we view people online and their platforms as sort of like the new shops at the shopping mall. And it completely dehumanizes the individual, obviously. And I'm not blaming anybody for that interpretation at all. Like I do this as well to people I follow. Like we're used to just consuming the person's content. And it's hard to really know a person. It's impossible to really know a person, what goes into their decision makings, what went on in their childhood or their subconscious beliefs and generational this and that informs who they are and why they do the things that they do and their motives. It's impossible to know what fully goes into a person's decision, or even a decision as big as something like moving to another country or decision to post something like their meal that they had. It's really impossible to know all of the nuances, all of the this, that's, and the others that goes into a person, a human, a full-fledged human being. And so it's just the nature of being online, being exposed to a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different beliefs and experiences. And as somebody who is somewhat public facing, not that I'm a celebrity or anything, but having thousands of followers on YouTube and Instagram or whatever, and having the exposure to people of all different backgrounds and beliefs and et cetera, it is important to me and has become way more important to me in the last 3-4-ish years. I've been online for 13 years when my business took off about 13 years ago on Instagram. So I've learned a lot. I'm not saying I know everything, but I've learned a lot about my own personal boundaries, how to handle criticism and hate, how to navigate and share and try to share authentically, despite knowing that people are going to interpret it as cringy and doing it anyways, because no matter what, someone's going to interpret it as cringy. And I'm just going to try to look past that and be myself anyway. And model that kind of like as a permission slip to other people to live as their authentic self, despite fear of judgment or criticism, etc. Because that, I believe, is truly one of the most important things, one of the most important messages that we can get across to any human being, but especially young people, people that we're raising as our future leaders, is getting in touch with who you are. And despite having the committee, the voice, the inner voices of criticism, whether they're from yourself or the beliefs that you've had, or maybe it was a critical mother or a teacher or audience member, etc. Still getting to the core of you despite that criticism, not allowing those voices to dilute who you are, make you play small so that you fit in the comfortable box that someone else wants for you to fit into. And as a woman, especially, we are going down so many rabbit holes, but that is just how, this is how I converse. I'm, as you know, very ADHD. So here we go. But especially as a woman, trying to share my journey authentically, having other women criticize and judge. And I don't judge. I'm not offended. I know bringing that up is probably even going to have some sort of criticism, but this is my own experience. And I'm just trying to be helpful in modeling and talking about this and processing this. But having vulnerability, going through and sharing my own authentic experience and expression, and being on the internet with a platform of some particular size, and being criticized and hated for my own decisions that are so, I'm not deciding to be hateful. I'm not like doing anything wrong, like I'm just deciding I don't want to share where we're moving to just yet. And there has been, and it hasn't been the majority, and I'm so grateful. And I don't want to make this video all about this. I'm only sharing this because I know that navigating boundaries and navigating big changes in different chapters and whatnot, it can feel really wobbly. It can feel, there's so much like different anxieties that come with it. What if we don't acclimate? What if we don't get acquainted? What if Miles doesn't get acquainted and he doesn't like it? And we've just sold everything and left behind our family and our familiarity with, where he's grown up and the schools and all of this what if stuff that we have processed very thoroughly, but you can't possibly know until you're here. Where was I going with that? It's a very vulnerable place, and I know that a lot of people can relate to it on a bigger scale and also on a smaller scale. Maybe you're thinking about ending a relationship. Maybe you're thinking about starting a new job. Maybe you're thinking about whatever, fill in the blank. We go through change. That is literally the nature of being a human being. You can't avoid change. It's a part of life. And so me sharing this when we're in this season of having my supplies and my normal routine and life kind of packed up, we're in this season of me just kind of sharing what I'm literally just experiencing. And I knew going into it that there was going to be criticism and there was going to be judgment. That's completely fine. If I'm not for you anymore, that's totally fine with me. Like I'm constantly unfollowing people. Like it's not news to me that people are not going to resonate with my content anymore. But I'm very aware that that's happening and that will continue to happen. And I don't expect you to just follow me anyways. Like don't let me stop you. But in sharing all of this, I know that there has been a lot of people who have resonated, who have at least gleaned some sort of like tip or advice for navigating seasons of big change in their own life. Excuse me. I have sensitive vocal cords. Anytime I talk for a long enough time, I start to lose my voice, and I've been trying to record these videos for so long. So anyway, I knew going into it there would be criticism. And again, I don't want to make this video all about that, which it's kind of turning out to be that way, but I do think it's valuable to share my experience on this side as a person with a platform going through big change, sharing somewhat vulnerably. I'm not sharing my whole life, but sharing somewhat vulnerably and still having criticism and judgment, and that's expected. But to, I guess, kind of button this up somehow, hopefully you can find what I'm even talking about and follow along. But it's despite You can't control what other people are going to think about you, what other people might believe about you or project onto you and your decisions. I have still chosen to protect my peace over where we're going because I didn't want the negative energy, interpretation, the judgment, the criticism over the specific destination. I didn't want the onslaught of judgment during the decision either. And so I know people are going to figure it out. I know one day I'll probably share. Um, However, I wanted to protect that moment of transition. I wanted to keep and protect my peace during the moment of transition because there have been, it's been the most amazing experience, but at the same time, one of the most challenging experiences of my life of navigating the what ifs, the anxieties, being a mother at the same time, being a business owner at the same time, and main income provider, selling a house that we absolutely love, and leaving behind a place that is familiar, that I grew up in, spent my entire life there, minus a stint in Chicago for 7 years, and friends, community, all of that. It's a very, and I'm not saying it's like the most challenging experience that anyone could ever go through. However, it is challenging. There are challenges that come with it that are new, that I'm navigating, that we're navigating as a family. And so I wanted to protect and make sure that mental health wise, and just, peace wise, I was able to protect as much as possible. So, to give more of a context behind the scenes of why people do things that they do and why maybe I didn't share, and maybe that still disappoints you, that's totally fine. I can't please everybody. And I know that. I'm very aware of that. And I don't want to. That means if I'm pleasing everybody, that I've fit myself and shrunk myself so incredibly small to fit into the smallest box possible so that I'm digestible to every human. That's, first of all, impossible. But to do that, I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't live with that small version of myself and the constant negative self criticism that's been laid on me from these outside voices that I now carry with me on my inside my inner voice, that continues to affect every single or at least the majority of the decisions I make around what I post online. Like, this is one of my forms of expression. I couldn't imagine diluting who I am as a person. And there's, it's really weird being on the internet and trying to share authentically with like a screen and a reflection of yourself looking back at you. It feels like you're talking to an empty room, because you are. I'm talking to this empty, very echoey room currently in the temporary house that we're living in this new country. And I have no idea how people are going to perceive it because it's just me here talking. I have no idea. I can't look at facial expressions and see like, ooh, I don't think that struck a chord. Maybe we should change the subject. I don't know. I have no idea. And I do these things off the cuff. So like, you get my ADHD, you get my tangents, you get my all the stuff. And I can't control how people are going to perceive it. And I have no idea until it's posted and I see the comments. How people are going to perceive it, which is weird. I'm not saying it's terrible and it's this bad thing. It's just weird. And so navigating that and learning as I go, because obviously the comments are helpful in what resonates, what doesn't resonate, but also trying to be myself at the same time and not diminish because that one negative comment or those 3 people who were like, why would you do that? Or whatever, it's a weird thing to navigate that I have 13 years of experience with, but also because this is a newer chapter in my life, I'm learning. We're always learning. We're humans. So that's cool. Anyway, I didn't anticipate spending so much time sharing all of that in this video. I had some other ideas that I've been percolating on that I wanted to process and talk about on here. I do want to share that I've only been able to paint one other time, and it was for a Patreon live art class in Mexico that I did. I've only been able to paint that one other time on this, like, since selling our house back in March. When did we move? Early March? I don't remember. But I was able to paint today and do some art. So that was cool. I've been using this travel watercolor sketchbook, doing some ink illustration stuff of our travels. This was from Tulum, another couple pages from Tulum when we were in Mexico. And then this was one of the things that I did for the Patreon Live art class. Another one of the things that I did over here. And then today, all I did was something simple because I didn't have the mental capacity and the physical capacity because things are very like this. We have barely any routine currently, and we're working on that this week. It's time to get like more routine, more work done, and more like just like schedule and stuff like that for all three of us. And so, but I knew I needed to tap into creative expression because it's been a while. I've been trying to like sing a little bit here and there, which is a great tool to have that you can use anywhere, even in public if you have no shame, like I do. But I just did a simple abstract beachy wash, and that's all I had time for today. 5 minutes or less, and it filled my cup. Sometimes that's all you need is just to be present, put your phone away, leave it in another room for 5 minutes, my gosh, and just allow yourself to be in that moment with your paintbrush, with your paints, or with your journal and pen, whatever. I've been thinking about this too, and I know this video is kind of getting long, but I've been thinking about like the average screen time that people have is now between 5 and 7 hours a day. And added up to an average lifespan of, let's say, 80 years old, we'll be generous and say 80 instead of 75. 80 years old, if you start that habit of 5 to 7 hours of social media or screen time, mobile screen time a day, the low end, so 5 hours a day, is 10 years of your life. 10 years. The high end, if you do 7 hours of screen time a day on average, and you'll get the notification. You'll see what your screen time is if you check it, or if you get the notification. 7 hours a day is 16 years of your life. Imagine the things you could accomplish, the potential versions of yourself that you could become. Imagine the new habits that you could create. And I'm speaking to the choir, people. I'm not saying this to come across as judgy or like, whatever. I think it's gotten out of hand, and it's so much more important now than I think it ever was. Well, maybe not, but it's really important to do the things that bring us peace, take us out of the chaos of checking notifications, the dopamine hit, the curiosity, the need, the satiety, like just be with yourself for 5 minutes. So start with small habits, 5 minutes of creative time a day, journaling, painting, playing music, whatever, singing, dancing, cooking. Give that gift back to yourself. I know I've been saying that a lot in my videos lately, but it's just because it hits home for me so much. I know it will hit home with so many more people because I'm not an anomaly. We are being bombarded by by distractions. And it is becoming harder and harder by the day to have the discipline to do it differently. So protect your peace, protect your presence, your ability to be present, protect it at all costs, at all costs. Cheers to that. I don't know if I said this, and I don't need to say it, but this is water, unfortunately. I think I did say that. Maybe it'll be wine soon. Anyway, love to you all. If you're still watching this at the end of this video, thank you. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching these videos. Thank you for sticking around with me during this transition. I know I'm going to get questions because, and that's fine, but I mentioned that I've been painting on the road. I use a plastic travel palette. I can read your mind. I use a plastic travel palette to travel with. I've had this for 10 years or something. The brown burnt umber does not like to stay. She does not like to stay put. So we just take the pieces and we re-wet it and we stick it back once we have a painting session. So anyway, that's my travel palette. I've used it for years. I take it on my art retreats that I teach and workshops that I've traveled and done all over the world. Throughout the years, she's gone with me everywhere. And I've had her for years. I'll link to it below, but she's on Blick and Amazon. I have both of those shop links in the description of every single one of my videos, but I'll link to the specific palette in the video. And I don't remember where I got this. I'm pretty sure I got it at an art store in Florence, Italy, which would be dope. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened on my last art retreat that I did in Florence in October. And then this is my brush case that I travel with. It looks like a sushi thing, like a thing that you roll the sushis in. Ooh, this is hard. Dude, she's perfect, really inexpensive. Keeps all my favorite brushes in there, and then she rolls up real tight and nice, and we just stick her in the carry-on backpack. Also on Blick and Amazon. I'll link to it. What else? That's all really. I travel with my tubes of paint. Yes, you can. I travel. Oh, that's not my paint bag. I don't know where they went. I also travel with my pens. But I do travel with my tubes of paint, my 14 milliliter tubes of paint. I check those. They don't explode. They've never exploded for me. And I've gone on several art retreats abroad, several workshops on planes, like probably upwards of at least 15 planes trips with these tubes of paint. They don't get stopped in security either if I do carry on. So anyway, you can travel with your tubes of paint. Don't worry about that. I just make sure to put the paint in my palette to dry like a week in advance so that I'm not traveling with any sort of wetness in my palette because mold and also because mess. But if it's closed and like, for example, I had an art retreat in Morocco once a few years ago and my bag got lost. Thankfully I packed back up in my carry-on, but it got lost. I think it was like for 6-ish days or whatever. I'm not saying that it would have been moldy by the time I got it if it was wet, but potentially. And that's just, we don't paint with that. So anyway, make sure it's laid out to dry for a few days before you actually travel. But I do get asked a lot, like, how do you travel? What paint palette do you buy for travel, etc.? I don't do anything different. I just have a plastic foldable travel palette that I use instead of my flat ceramic palette that I normally use when I have my stuff in one spot and I have the home office. But right now I don't. So that is what we're using. Anyway, cutting myself off. Have a nice weekend. Have a nice day. I'll see you in next week's video. Let me know if you have questions about anything that I've talked about our travels, about our um, art and traveling, whatever. And also, if you're wanting more art tutorials from me, they will return to YouTube very soon once we find a house to live in and we're more stationary and I have access to my things and better video quality and microphones and stuff. But for the time being, if you want I think over 300, it's hundreds worth of art tutorials in my Patreon library that you can access for as little as $10 a month. You can cancel at any time. So you can start it for 1 month, binge, and then cancel if you want, or continue to support me and continue to have access to monthly live art classes and art critiques that I do every month in there as well, and also an art community. Anyway, it's a great place to be, especially if you miss my art tutorials, my watercolor tutorials. I have hundreds of videos that you've never seen on YouTube that are in my Patreon. So check it out. I will be back to those soon. But for now, we are sharing my travels and authentic experience going through big life change and how I'm staying creative and how I'm navigating, expressing myself, and staying in touch with who I am throughout this big change and transition. So, anyway, thank you for being here. Kisses.